channel. Who is the baddest there is? This is the beat. Welcome everyone to another episode of The Beatdown, the segment and channel where two worlds collide. I am your host, Class. And as always, guys, if you guys enjoy our content, you know what you guys can do. You can share, you can like, or you can subscribe to our channel. When you guys subscribe to our channel, you know what you do. You guys are building our empire and allowing us to provide you guys with even much more greater content for you guys to enjoy. And on today's episode, in honor of Despicable Me 4 coming and hitting theaters, we figured, hey, we continue on this little segments on topics that are related to the franchise, and we thought we'd do one on the villains this time. Yeah, so let's get things started, shall we? So pretty much, if you guys want to learn about the powers, abilities, and feats, if you want to learn about the brief origin stories of these characters, it will be all down in the description below. You can find it. We'll have links to it, so that way you can go ahead and watch it yourself. But in the meantime, this is just all about the end game, how these characters will win these particular fights. Now, let me give you kind of like a ring announcement of these characters. All right, in one corner, committing crimes with direction and magnitude, the fish gun expert himself, Vector. On another corner, everything he does is Macho. From how he has his alcohol shots to how he decides to go out. He does it all with his bare hands. El Macho. And in another corner, he has been a bad boy to a bad man. A villain stuck in the 80s. The dance fighter himself, Bratt Balthazar. Alright guys, let's get into the end game. Let's start off with Vector, and how he would defeat both El Macho and the other character, Bratt. Now, let's start off with Daddy's Money. Now, why would I mention that? Because, well, we got to bring that up. In the first movie, Vector is related to the head of the bank, who's obviously investing in villains, and he obviously invested in his own son. He has a lot of money. Enough money that he actually bankrolls his own son's evil empire and his weaponries and everything, which means he gets the latest gadgets and weaponry in advance technology, which means he'd probably be able to take on Brad, since his equipment's basically 80s style, and El Macho isn't really exactly in the advanced technology department. He's more in the I will beat you with my bare hands department. So when it comes to high-tech advancery, you got to give it to the boy Vector. Now, another thing is, his house is an example of how incredibly vital it is when it comes to money, because that thing is a fortress. If you remember, Gru, he's one of the baddest villains around, wasn't able to get through and get into his lair, into his house, because it was completely booby-trapped with so many like security measures. You had missile launchers, you had like these saws that would cut through wires, you had punching like gloves. You got a whole bunch of things that would have came to an advantage with Vector. When all he had to do was sit on his keyboard and use it in order to get all these weapons and security measures put out and defend his ground. So he could use his house to defeat El Macho for sure, and he also defeat Bratt in this situation. All right, another couple of points I will have to say is the guns he's invented. Now, you probably think, man, he's crazy, because obviously those guns are not going to work anywhere. Well, in this world, it does work. Piranhas and squid weaponry. Now, why would that come in handy in a fight? Well, let's talk about them. The piranha in our world is pretty much deadly. If it could bite through human flesh. It can bite through pretty much metal, I believe. So if it could bite through a certain amount of solid material, hard matter, it could definitely bite through the flesh of a human being, which means that if he happens to shoot one of those piranha guns right at one of El Macho or Brad, it's game over for them. Now, another thing is the squid. Now, the squid, interesting enough, has these really strong suction cups attached to the tentacles. Now, that comes in handy, considering that those suction cups would be hard to pull off. And on top of that, squids are also known to have pretty tight grips, which means in a situation, if he shot one of those squid guns right at El Macho or Brad, that also would be screaming doom in their situation. Now, obviously, we can mention the flying aircraft that he could use. It has also some pretty interesting weapons and countermeasures in order to counter-strike any situations and scenarios. But we also have to mention in the first one the shrink ray. The shrink ray comes in handy. Now maybe it keeps these people in a temporary, or keeps certain objects in a temporary state for a time being, and they eventually grow back, but they still are turned into miniature size either way. So if Vector wanted to, he pulls out that shrink ray, he pulls El Macho with that shrink ray and Bratt, it's game over. He could put them in a jar, or he can just squish them like a bug. Either way, their size, they're not going to be able to defeat Vector, no matter how strong El Macho might be, and no matter how cool of a dance fighter Bratt is. Game over. Vector has the W on this one. Alright, now let's talk about the end game when it comes to El Macho. Now, you can see like little minions over here, in honor of the the villains and Despicable Me, but let's get into it. El Macho. Now let's talk about what he can do. Well, let's talk about the real strong points, which is he's obviously way stronger than Vector and Bratt. None of them have ever shown true strength. Skills, maybe technology, they're pretty savvy in, but when it comes to muscle, El Macho has got. This guy lifted an entire bank vault truck, or one of those safe trucks, whatever you call it, and carried it and ran off with it. So yeah, no playing around when it comes to El Macho. Another thing is bare fist fight. You gotta give El Macho credit. He does everything with his bare hands, which means it would scream doom if Brad had to take on El Macho and Vector had to take him on mano a mano. They ain't got a chance. And meaning fist to fist, hand to hand, they ain't got a chance in hell going against El Macho. El Macho is too damn tough to take on. Now another thing is, it's not going to be easy to put down on Macho. Macho he had a truck rammed into him and it didn't bother him. He walks right through walls. Like, this guy is not easy to put down, and it would be impossible to put down. So there wouldn't be enough might out there for these two to be able, even combined together, to be able to put El Macho down in a fight, which means eventually El Macho will be able to overtake him. A couple other points, and the final points I'll make is the purple serum mutation formula. Now that's going to come in handy, because let's say he decides to bring out the army of minions he injected with that purple serum. Those purple monsters are indestructible and unstoppable. I mean, they can eat all these difficult matters, with whether it's a wall or anything, or a truck or a helicopter. They can literally eat a missile. That's crazy. So having those swarm of armies go against Vector and Bratt, even if Bratt has his Bratt packs, they're not going to be able to take on the indestructible purple monster minions. They're pretty much impossible to defeat. They need the secret formula, which happens to be Jam, which none of them would pretty much have at that time. Or if El Macho wanted to, he could just inject himself with the serum and become that big giant purple hairy monster that he was in the movie. Yeah, if he turns into that, Vector is pretty impressive with his weaponry, and so is Bratt, but their technology is not going to be able to take on a full giant purple monster, and this is going to give El Macho the W. Alright, so let's talk about the end game when it comes to Bratt Balthazar. Now, Bratt, not a lot you can say too much when it comes to Bratt, because yes, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, but not enough to say that he could probably defeat El Macho and Vector. But let's give him a shot. First, let's start off with his dance fighting skills. The guy, I mean, he's impressive. So even if El Macho came up to him with any of those fist blowing throws, I mean, Bratt will be able to dodge it. He's pretty damn good at it. And Vector is not any skillful dancer or fighter, so yeah, he'd probably be taking a school when it comes to a dance fight against Bratt. And now Macho would probably be counter dodged so many times, like in a fight against Bratt, so it probably would tire Macho out, even though he's a big guy. At his age, at a certain point, it's going to be like a little bit draining for him to take on somebody who's still pretty damn active. And the solid other 3 points I will make is his weapons, the equipment he has. There is the Bratt pack that probably could overwhelm El Macho at some point with the swarm of those little robots coming at him, or for sure will take Vector out of the equation easily. There is that possibility, there's no doubt in my mind. Another thing is that Bratt invented a giant robot of himself. If he wanted to, he could probably use that in a fight. El Macho is tough, but I don't think he's going to be strong enough to overtake a robot. And on top of that, same thing with Vector. Even though he has some pretty impressive aircraft weaponry and a home like that, Bratt's just way too big. Plus, he's got that laser diamond band on his forehead. He could just shoot that and probably take any weapon out that they might be able to throw at him. And then the last and final point of equipment that he could probably throw up his sleeve, and it's one of his strongest and impressive one, is that inflatable gum. Like, it grows in size like the blob. If he throws that gum, all he has to do is shoo it, throw it, and then it steps on someone's shoe, and bam, it grows on them, or it latches onto them, and then it just increases in size. It could get Macho stuck in there. It could get Vector stuck in there, and Bratt could win the W that way. Easy said. And then also, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, is that Bratt is a master of disguise. That I have to mention just as a little side note, because he could pretend to be Lucy, that spy agent who's the anti-villain league member. He could bring her as a disguise and scare probably Vector and Macho off that way and get the W that way. But either way, the gum trick, the disguise trick, the giant robot, the Bratt pack, either way, Bratt can dance his way to the victory and the W on this one. But as always, no press fam, it's not up to me, it's up to you guys. So if you liked either one of my arguments, you know what you can do. You can hashtag Vector, you can hashtag El Macho, or you can hashtag Bratt. I guess you could put Bratt Balthazar, because I don't know if they have like a short name for him on the hashtag. But either way, as always, no press fan, we really appreciate you guys keeping it 500 subs. Peace.